But I get it now. He's got new friends and they bring new views. It's celebrity peer pressure. But the fact that he hasn't left his house in 2 years means that his views are BS. He was in a happy self-imposed lockdown with everything. Mansion on the beach, limitless options for food and entertainment. That's not real life. That's a 2-year all-inclusive vacation at Sandals Royal Barbados, which is impossible for everyone else in lockdown, including, especially, his listeners. Hell, he was doing his show from home. Does that make sense?
Well, I know some of them, and like Howard, I was on Howard Stern's show as much as anybody, and
yeah.
he was great at that time, and then he went woke.
Yeah.
And since he's gone woke, his ratings have gone down the tubes. And
once hailed as the king of shock jocks, Howard Stern now looks like a dethroned monarch, desperately clutching a broken crown, only to have Greg Gutfeld rip it away and toss it into the gutter with a smirk that shook the airwaves. Trump's decision to cancel Stern's show wasn't just a spark, it was dynamite. And Gutfeld didn't waste a second turning that explosion into a full-blown inferno that torched Stern's ego, his legacy, and the hollow shell of his so-called relevance. This wasn't a polite critique. It was a demolition derby on live television. Gutfeld shredded the image Stern had spent decades building, exposing him as a relic, pretending he still mattered in an era that had already left him behind. Howard Stern, the man who once terrified censors and mocked elites, was suddenly reduced to nothing more than a fragile caricature of himself, an echo of past glory that no longer carried weight.
She also appeared on Howard Stern, where he said he'd even vote for a wall over Trump. Harris replied, "I'm not a wall, but I am plastered."
Howard Stern, it's a name I haven't heard. I used to do a show, we used to have fun, but I haven't heard that name in a long time. What happened? He got terminated?
Yeah, they're going to separate ways because I think what they're offering salary-wise is real low than what he's getting.
You know when he went down?
Whenever you want.
You know when he went down? No, before, when he endorsed Hillary Clinton, he lost his audience. People said, give me a break. He went down when he endorsed Hillary Clinton.
The media may have erupted in outrage when Trump pulled the plug, acting as though civilization itself was collapsing. But Gutfeld laughed at the hysteria and pointed out the truth. Stern had been cancelled long before Trump made it official. For years, Stern's edge had been eroding, his rebellious fire dimming into the soft glow of a man who traded danger for comfort. And Gutfeld made sure everyone saw that transformation for what it was, a sellout of legendary proportions. The once outrageous provocateur who mocked phonies and rattled the establishment had slowly morphed into the very thing he used to despise, a sanitized, politically correct celebrity therapist, spoon-feeding safe conversations to his famous friends. Gutfeld painted a brutal picture of Stern's decline, comparing him to a rock star who once sold out arenas but now plays coffee shops, begging the crowd to remember his greatest hits. Even Stern's fan base wasn't spared from the mockery. Gutfeld skewered the die-hard defenders who still pretend it's 1995, clinging to the name while ignoring the reality that Stern has become a carefully polished brand with no bite. And when Stern dared to act shocked by Trump's popularity, Gutfeld pounced. He mocked Stern's confusion as the ramblings of a man completely out of touch with the very audience he once claimed to understand better than anyone.
It's weird because he criticizes Trump for dividing the country, and then he says he hates his supporters. So he's not learning from his own analysis. I think he might have turned into the thing he hated. He needs to go back and watch the movie Private Parts and focus on how he portrayed Don Imus, because he's kind of turned into Don Imus in a way. It's a mix of ego and resentment.
They announced that he was leaving his show. Howard Stern announced that he and Sirius XM Radio are parting ways. Do you think the hate Trump business model that's been in the entertainment business is going out of business because it's not popular with the American people?
Well, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked really for a long time, and I would say pretty much from the beginning.
The man who once roasted elites now wines and dines with them in exclusive Hamptons dinner parties. Stern traded rebellion for champagne glasses, swapping leather jackets for cardigans, and Gutfeld didn't let him off the hook for a second. Howard Stern had once bragged that he would never bow to corporate masters. But now, as Gutfeld pointed out, he follows their script line by line, turning his show into little more than a well-funded PR machine. His interviews, once unpredictable chaos, have turned into stage therapy sessions where celebrities confess just enough to stay on brand, with Stern nervously guarding the boundaries so no one important gets offended. The chaos is gone, the danger erased, the rebellion replaced with maintenance, and Gutfeld hammered him for it with merciless precision. He mocked Stern's obsession with legacy, pointing out that true legends don't need to constantly remind people they're legends. The constant reminders, Gutfeld said, are the clearest sign that Stern's crown had already slipped away, and no amount of Hollywood name-dropping or expensive dinner parties would bring it back. Stern talks about his career like a retired athlete replaying old highlights on the couch, while the rest of the world has already moved on.
You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. To keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro.
Gutfeld drove the knife deeper by exposing Stern's hypocrisy. The man who once roasted others for selling out had cashed in his rebellion for a seat at the very table he used to mock. He went from breaking rules to enforcing them, from daring censors to practically applying for the job. In Gutfeld's words, Stern didn't lose his crown because Trump canceled his show. He lost it the moment he stopped taking risks. And the punchline was brutal. Trump didn't cancel Howard Stern. Howard Stern canceled Howard Stern. All Trump did was make it official. By the time Gutfeld was finished, Stern wasn't just mocked. He was exposed as a living cautionary tale for every rebel who ever thought they could stay edgy while sipping cocktails with the elites they once mocked. Gutfeld didn't just mock Stern's fading image. He dismantled the mythology that kept him afloat. He reminded viewers that Stern's fall began long before Trump ever touched the plug. The decline started the moment Stern endorsed Hillary Clinton, losing the trust of the very working-class listeners who once made him a cultural giant. That wasn't rebellion, it was surrender. Once, Stern had the guts to challenge power, to rip through hypocrisy, and to expose phoniness wherever it hid. But the modern Stern, he's too busy shielding elites from criticism and parroting the same tired talking points you can already hear from any late-night host afraid to go off script.
But it is incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke.
Gutfeld pointed out that Stern's hypocrisy runs even deeper. This is the man who once mocked sanitized morning radio shows, sneering at their fake cheerfulness and corporate obedience. And yet now, he has become exactly what he mocked. The irony is staggering, and Gutfeld made sure no one missed it. The old Stern thrived on chaos, danger, and unpredictability. He loved walking the tightrope where anything could happen, and censors panicked at every word. But the Stern of today, he's carefully balancing on the guardrails, terrified of offending the same Hollywood celebrities he once roasted without mercy. Even Stern's humor became a target. Gutfeld ridiculed his once dangerous wit as now being nothing more than soft jokes and bland banter. What used to feel like raw electricity now feels like watching a guidance counselor nervously lecture about being respectful. The energy is gone, the spark is gone, and the rebellion is dead. Gutfeld mocked them as diehards wearing the jersey of a player who was traded years ago, still pretending the game hasn't changed while ignoring all the evidence in front of them. They defend Stern's name, not his substance, because the substance is gone. Greg hammered the point home. Longevity isn't legacy. Simply sticking around doesn't make you legendary. You have to keep earning it. Stern hasn't earned it in decades, and clinging to airtime like it's proof of greatness only makes his downfall more pitiful.
I hope you had a good week. I did, and no thanks to Howard Stern. True, the New York Post reported that Stern hit a chic restaurant in NYC with a crew of A-listers, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jennifer Aniston, Jon Hamm, Justin Theroux, Jason Bateman. I was not invited. I guess because my first name doesn't begin with the letter J. Did you notice that?
He compared Stern's show today to a rock concert, where the amps are unplugged and the lead singer spends half the time explaining his health regimen. What used to be thrilling now feels like maintenance, and maintenance never made anyone legendary. Stern once promised his listeners he would never sell out, never go soft, and never bend to the establishment. But Gutfeld showed that's exactly what he did. He betrayed his promise, and in doing so, he betrayed the very audience that crowned him king in the first place. Trump's cancellation didn't destroy Howard Stern. It revealed the truth everyone had been avoiding. The roar that once defined him has been reduced to a whisper, echoing in a studio designed to protect his ego rather than challenge it. And Gutfeld's conclusion was devastating. Howard Stern didn't lose his crown because Trump canceled his show. He lost it because he traded his rebellion for comfort, his chaos for safety, and his audience for Hollywood approval. Once you sit at the table with the kings, you stop being one yourself. By the time Gutfeld reached the heart of his roast, Stern's decline was impossible to deny. The man who once terrified the establishment was now begging for its approval. What was once raw power had transformed into hollow performance, and Greg hammered that hypocrisy with a grin. He exposed how Stern's interviews, once the crown jewel of his empire, now feel like carefully scripted therapy sessions. No chaos, no surprises, just celebrities rehearsing lines in green rooms before nodding through safe conversations. The danger that made Stern infamous is gone.
But imagine a conversation with that crew. So how's your health? 6 vaxes, 2 boosters, and an echinacea enema. And I only got COVID 4 times. Oh yeah, I did a triple vax and an IV booster trip, plus I gave Dr. Fauci a reach around. He was like, come on, Jimmy, don't worry about your sofa. I'm not a super spreader. Are a lot like his listeners, especially if you think about his listeners of old, the blue-collar truck drivers, cops, salesmen, people on the road. It's like a divorce. In the divorce, he married to a younger wife. He left the whole thing behind, and now he's got like new friends. Jackie the Joke Man, he can't compete with Jimmy Kimmel, so he's adopted this whole new lifestyle. He's traded in his old life for the Hamptons. He's got new friends. And he just he's ashamed of that world.
Greg mocked Stern's desperation to be respected by Hollywood, pointing out that the rebel spirit can't survive in a gated community filled with actors and champagne toasts. Stern traded shock for status, and in doing so, he buried the very spirit that made him unforgettable. The irony burned brightest when Gutfeld highlighted Stern's own past. This is the man who once roasted others for going soft, who mocked them for selling out, who demanded that rebellion stay alive. And now, he is the very thing he used to attack. The betrayal is written all over his legacy. Greg made the crowd laugh with comparisons, saying Stern is like a roller coaster that once terrified riders but now stops halfway through the first drop to ask if everyone's comfortable. What used to be thrilling is now just routine maintenance, dressed up as entertainment. Even Stern's sensitivity became a target. Gutfeld mocked how the once fearless jock now bristles at criticism like a cat afraid of a vacuum cleaner. The tough skin is gone, replaced with fragile defensiveness, the opposite of the raw confidence that once made him unstoppable. The hypocrisy is staggering. Stern criticizes Trump for dividing the nation, yet he openly admits to hating Trump's supporters. Gutfeld pointed out how absurd that is, proof that Stern hasn't just lost his edge, he's lost his ability to even recognize his own contradictions.
It's what Howard said later on his radio show. Quote, "I really had an exhausting weekend. Emotionally, physically. For the first time in 2 years, I ventured out of the house." Now, maybe he's exaggerating. We all do that. In fact, the more successful you get in media, the more exhausting the easiest things become. This is true. I guess that explains Kilmeade's boundless energy.
Greg compared Stern's modern self to Don Imus, a host Stern once mocked mercilessly. The transformation is undeniable. Ego, resentment, and sanctimony wrapped into a shell of what used to be a provocateur. Stern has become his own parody. And the more Stern leans into wokeness, the more pathetic it looks. Greg argued that Stern embraced the very culture that would have cancelled him for his past antics, blackface jokes, outrageous skits, and shocking stunts. His turn toward political correctness isn't conviction, it's survival. Gutfeld called it reparations for blackface, a desperate attempt to protect himself from a witch hunt by hoping the crocodile eats him last. But the truth is clear. No amount of pandering can erase the past, and no amount of Hollywood dinners can save his reputation. Even Stern's lifestyle became a punchline. Gutfeld roasted him for abandoning his old audience, truckers, blue-collar workers, outsiders, and replacing them with new friends in the Hamptons. Stern isn't ashamed of his past, Greg said. He's ashamed of the people who once made him king. The image is tragic. Stern still dresses in black, still keeps the hair, still clings to the aesthetic of rebellion. But as Gutfeld mocked, it's nothing more than costume now, a tribute act pretending to be dangerous while everyone knows the rebellion died years ago. He laughed at Stern's claim of still telling it like it is, pointing out that all Stern does now is echo the opinions of his A-list dinner party. He isn't speaking truth. He's reading from the guest list.
Now remember, Stern used to throw bologna slices at strippers' butts. With accuracy, I might add. Now he's worried the possible leader of the free world can't handle his verbal foot rub. I wonder if he used to get this nervous for the strippers before he'd spank them on their bare asses with a dead fish. Here's Stern on anyone daring to poke a little fun at Kamala.
Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake.
Greg tore into Stern's fan base again, saying they cling to the name, not the reality. They're cheering for a ghost, defending a brand, while ignoring that the man behind it has changed into the very establishment he used to spit on. The roast turned brutal, as Gutfeld reminded everyone. Legacy isn't permanent. You don't earn a lifetime membership just for being shocking once upon a time. You have to keep earning it. And Stern hasn't earned it in decades. Greg twisted the knife by pointing out that even Stern's politics are scripted. Every rant sounds like it was lifted from late-night TV, without a trace of originality. The rebel voice is gone, replaced with a parrot repeating what's safe. And then came the final blow. Howard Stern didn't need Trump to cancel him. He canceled himself years ago. Trump's decision was just the formal announcement of what had already happened. The king had fallen, and the throne was empty. Gutfeld ended with a devastating image. Stern's show is now like a museum exhibit of rebellion. People still line up, still look at the display, but the glass case, velvet ropes, and no touching signs remind everyone it's just history. The danger is gone. Howard Stern, once the king of all media, is now nothing more than a caretaker of approved media. His rebellion is dead, his edge dulled, his roar silenced. And as Greg Gutfeld made clear, Trump didn't take his crown. Stern handed it over the moment he traded rebellion for respectability.